For the first time in 2 decades, the Tar Heels are likely to be ranked outside the top 20 in the preseason AP poll. Good.
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Tuesday, September 16th, 2025. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. You're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making us your first listener watch to get your Tuesday off and running the way it's supposed to. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Hey, I want to welcome in all the everydayers, all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, and of course, our great Locked On Tar Heels insiders as well. Welcome in, everybody. Let's get to it. Here's what's coming up on the show today. We're going to take a look at probable preseason basketball rankings for Carolina basketball. My prediction is that it's going to be the lowest ranking in 2 decades. You heard Tyler Hansbrough's voice on the intro. Last time Carolina was as low as I think they're going to be, he was a freshman in college. We're going to revisit Carolina's football schedule. Does it still seem easy? Well, we'll take a look at that. And then Gio Lopez. He's still finding his way. And as well, he probably should be. But got to get it going. Will Carolina keep rolling with him? Will there be steps forward? We'll look at that. Okay, here we go. AP preseason poll. We're probably a month away from this. Last year, it was October 14th, I believe, was the AP preseason poll drop. And here's what you need to know. Carolina is being severely slept on this preseason. And that, in my opinion, is both a good thing and a correct thing. Here's what I mean. It's a correct thing because in the Hubert Davis era, I don't think the Tar Heels have earned the benefit of the doubt. And by that, I mean, you get to a point with certain coaches. I think Coach Williams had this status where it didn't really matter what the roster was like because Roy Williams was head coach. You're going to get the benefit of the doubt and be top 10, top 15, whatever it is. The Tar Heels under Coach Davis haven't gotten there yet. I also think it's a good thing that I think Carolina is going to be severely slept on because it's an opportunity to operate with the spotlight off of you for a while. Yes, I know the Kansas is coming to the Dean Dome the first Friday of the season, but aside from that, Carolina has 5 or 6 games, bye games, all of them before they get to the Fort Myers Invitational, where they're able to just work at getting things figured out and getting the personnel figured out and how do all the pieces fit together. But all of that leads to this point. I believe that Carolina will have their lowest preseason AP ranking in the past 2 decades. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. In the preseason of the 2005-06 season, so all the national championship guys had headed out. Tyler Hansbrough and others are coming in, and nobody knows yet that he's going to be Tyler Hansbrough, right? Carolina came into that season unranked. They were in others receiving votes. Every season from then until now, North Carolina has been preseason 19th or better. Literally 19th or better every season. And when you take a sampling of where things stand in a lot of people's preseason rankings, Carolina is in the 20s. The Blue Ribbon yearbook, for example, came out last week. Carolina was 25th in their preseason rankings. Here's another sampling. ESPN's Jeff Borzello, he does ESPN's main preseason rankings. 25th for Carolina. CBS Sports, Gary Parrish has had Carolina basically 25th all summer. Field of 68 literally put out a ranking on Monday. Carolina was 25th. Another CBS one from John Rothstein. He's got Carolina 27th. How about the computers and their analytic projection? Ken Palm, those numbers aren't out yet, but Bart Torvik has Carolina 18th. That's the highest I've seen the Tar Heels anywhere. And Evan Mia at his site, they are 29th. And so when I say to you, Carolina has been 19th or better every season since the 2006-07 season, and they were unranked going into the 05-06 season, I think that Carolina is either going to be in the 20s or unranked at least they will be receiving votes. They will definitely get votes. It won't be like unranked and no votes. We won't see that. But I think it is a very real probability that North Carolina is going to be in that realm where they have not lasted. In fact, it will be also their lowest preseason ranking of the Hubert Davis era. Obviously, if the other thing is true, that is too. But they've been flirting with it. The first season of Coach Davis, obviously, it's new. It has nothing to do with him yet other than him as an assistant. They were 19th preseason. And then, the next year they were 1 preseason. We know how that went. Then they were 19th again after the season where they missed the tournament when they were a 1 seed. And then they were 9th preseason last year. And so I think that pendulum is going to swing back and they are going to be 20th or worse. And it's not just in the preseason ranking where you see the sleeping on North Carolina. At Blue Ribbon, they put out a 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th team All-Americans, not a Tar Heel among them. In Blue Ribbon's ACC preview, Carolina picked 3rd. I like that spot behind Duke and Louisville. I think Carolina could do better. They could do worse. And I think that's a nice Goldilocks middle ground for the time being. But also, Blue Ribbon's ACC preview, they have a 5-man all-ACC preseason team. No Tar Heels on that either. Now, that's not true everywhere. John Rothstein has Seth Trimble on his preseason all-ACC team, et cetera, et cetera. And so there is that. Now, what's interesting is I have done some other polling around. I did one on YouTube. I did one on our Discord. I did one on Twitter. Let's see where it stands in real time with each of those. My Twitter poll, let's get to that first. And I only put this up a couple hours ago, so I hadn't had much time to grow yet. But I asked where people think Carolina will be preseason right now. And so I broke it up on Twitter, 1 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 to 25, and then others receiving votes are unranked. The highest vote getter right now, there are 46 votes, is 11 to 20. People think Carolina will be in that range. That got 43.5%. 21 to 25 got the second most. How about YouTube? Let's go look at our YouTube community page. North Carolina, where's posts? Here we go. The Tar Heels right now. This one has 126 votes. And here it's the same breakdown I had. Here, 21 to 25 has the highest number of votes at 37%, with 11 to 20 right behind. So I think that's where a lot of people think it's going to be. Let's check the Discord last and see what we've got there. Let me get back up to the poll because a lot of people were talking about it. By the way, if you've not joined the Discord, we'd love to have you. In Discord, I was able to break it out a lot more. So I just did it by 5 groups of 5, 1 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, etc. 16 to 20 is the biggest vote getter by a pretty good margin. 45% of people think the Tar Heels will fall there. And so that seems kind of right, but it's just, I was curious to see what the Tar Heel fan base thought of all of it as well. So there you go. That's where people fall. Now, what's also interesting to me is there are very similar parallels to this team as to the 2023-2024 team. Remember, that team was coming off of a year where they didn't make the NCAA tournament. They had been struggling. They declined the NIT bid, a whole bunch of new pieces in. They were being very slept on. They were preseason 19. And they wound up winning the ACC regular season title, and they got a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. The only 1 seed that was the best season of the Hubert Davis era. This year has a lot of parallels. Coming off nearly missing the NCAA tournament, maybe think Carolina probably should have. I certainly didn't expect them to make it. A whole bunch of new pieces. In fact, it's more when you count Luka coming in, 1 international player, 3 freshmen, and is it 6 total transfers in? Am I thinking correctly? You've got Henri Veesaar, you've got Jarin Stevenson, you've got Kyan Evans, you've got Jaden Young, you've got Jonathan Powell, and you've got Ivan Matlakovich. Yeah, so 10 total newcomers to this team. It's even more than that season, and being very slept on. Obviously, we don't know the AP preseason ranking yet, but that's all lining up. So I'm very interested to see how that's all going to go. Will Carolina, I'm assuming they're going to be ranked. The question is where, and will it be the lowest in 2 decades? I say yes, and I think it's a great opportunity for Carolina to take the world by storm, kind of out of nowhere, kind of out of obscurity in terms of Carolina standard, right? So we'll see what happens. Where do you think the Tar Heels should land? Let me know. Now that we are 3 weeks into the football season, I want to take a relook at Carolina's football schedule, which looked really easy preseason. Is it still looking the same? Is it looking tougher or easier? Well, we don't really fully know yet, but regardless, here's what we do know. Carolina needs to keep growing and go win some of those games, and some of the predictions against them are not favorable. We'll look at that coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about Prize Picks, which is the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. With football back and going, Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes, all in less than 60 seconds. I've been really enjoying Prize Picks. I think it's a fun thing to look at. Again, it's simple, and it's a fun way to show that you can stay locked in for the season. Quick, easy, and honestly, what a great way to follow along with football. Sunday night football next week. They've done a special already. Patrick Mahomes' passing yards is set at 0.5. If he gets 1 passing yard and you go more, you win. I love it when they do these specials. That's really cool. And the best part, even if one of your picks misses, Prize Picks invented the flex play so you can still double your money. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. We're going to take a relook at Carolina's football schedule. I do quickly have a few football tidbits for you, 4 of them. It was announced on Monday, the Chapel Thrill concert series. The next one will be Carolina hosting Clemson. Luda! Come on, man. That's incredible. Ludacris going to be there on campus. Going to be great stuff. Also, the line for UCF this weekend came out. How about this? Carolina 6.5-point underdogs. That's even more than the TCU game. Also, we've been talking clean football a lot lately. We talked on Saturday postcast about no turnovers for the starters. We talked on Sunday on Monday's show just about other clean play, doing things well in terms of not being penalized. And I want to give it a part 3 on clean football. The missed tackles was atrocious against TCU, 19 of them, 19. Cut it down great to just 7 against Charlotte, and per PFF, that number fell to 2 missed tackles for the Tar Heels against Richmond. It's hard to get much better than that. You could, but now that you've seen what you need to do, now you got to prove that you can do it against higher level competition, and you just got to maintain again, you would ideally have none, but that's almost impossible, right? So there you go. 4th football tidbit. Congrats to Mekhi Bayer, who was named the ACC linebacker of the week. Believe it or not, he is the first player. Well, probably believe it. He is the first player of the week nod for the Tar Heels this season. Great play for Mekhi. We pointed him out on yesterday's show as one of our 3 players of the game. Okay, let's revisit Carolina's football schedule now that we're 3 weeks in, because one of the big storylines coming into the season was the relative ease of Carolina's football schedule. But especially in this portal era, it's so hard to know until you get going. So I want to ask the question, now that we're 3 weeks in, does it look tougher, easier, or the same? Well, one thing you need to know right out of the gate, currently there are 0, none, not a zilch, no ranked teams on Carolina's schedule. There are a couple in others receiving votes. TCU is 30th. If they keep winning, they will probably eventually get in, as are Clemson's and others receiving votes, and NC State, although way down on the list. So as you look at what teams have been so far this season, I think in terms of who is better than we originally thought or tougher, I think TCU, man, got to give them some props. We're going to say more about TCU and their quarterback in the 3rd segment today. And I think the other is Cal. They've got this freshman quarterback that people are really enjoying. They won a home game over Minnesota over the weekend. And so I think that trip out west to Cal is going to be more difficult than we initially thought it would be. What about some teams that maybe aren't playing as well, where the schedule looks to maybe be a little bit easier? I think the obvious and clear one is Clemson. They are not remotely close to what everyone thought they were going to be. For Clemson, they are 1-2. Now, let's say this. They lost at home to number 9 LSU 17-10. They beat Troy at home, although They were down, only won 27-16, and then they lost at Georgia Tech, who's now ranked lower than they should be, quite frankly, 24-21. So it's odd because Clemson's 2 losses are against ranked teams. Their win is against a team they should have blown out, but they should have beaten them better. And so it's hard to know what to truly make of the Tigers, other than to say they are not remotely what we thought they would be preseason. The other one that looks to me to be not as good as maybe we thought is Duke. Carolina plays them on November 22nd at home. The Blue Devils are 1-2. They crushed Elon to start the season 45-17, but that's kind of similar to what Carolina just did to Richmond, an FCS school, whatever. And then they lost to Illinois, who at the time was number 11 in the country, but they didn't just lose. They got crushed. 19-45 was the score there. And then this weekend, they lost on the road at Tulane, 34-27. You shouldn't lose that game. It is a true road game. I get that. But it's all that to say, I think Duke is a team where that makes Carolina's schedule easier than I thought, because Duke is not as good as I thought. The school that I think is about as bad as we thought it was going to be is Stanford, right? Like nothing has changed there. But for Carolina's other opponents, I put them in the TBD category because I don't yet know what to make of them. And that includes this weekend's opponent, UCF. UCF has only played 2 games. They beat Jacksonville State and North Carolina A&T. That's all they've done so far. So you can't really determine anything. Virginia's in that category, Syracuse, Wake Forest, and NC State. All of those teams, it's too early to call for me, right? Like it's like election night when we're having the presidential election and it's like not enough of the votes are in to determine what's actually happening. Too early to tell. That's where I'm at with those 5 schools. So ultimately for right now, as I say, easier, harder, or the same, I'm right now going to say it's easier, particularly because of the Clemson of it all. That now is a legitimately winnable game. Will Carolina win it? It's still going to be very tough, but not as tough as it was. Same with Duke. And remember, you get both of those teams at home, so that was already nice. But all this may be a moot point, and here's why. I was checking out ESPN's matchup predictor for each of North Carolina's remaining 9 games, and check this out. Of the remaining games, and look, it's a computer. Let me just say that before we get going, right? It's analytics, it's numbers, it's data, but still. Of the remaining games, ESPN's matchup predictor favors Carolina in only 2 of them. Meaning, if it all played out the way it would, like the way matchup predictor predicted, Carolina would finish the season 4-8. Yikes. Well, let me give you another yikes. In those 2 predicted wins, it favors Carolina only against Stanford, 55.8%. That's not exactly like a massive, like, hey, you're going to blow this game out. And the other is at Wake, which even that one's only 58.4%. So Carolina, in matchup predictor, 2 more wins on the schedule, and neither of those are like, yeah, you got that locked in. So double yikes. And then of the remaining 7 losses that matchup predictor has, all of those has Carolina under 40% chance to win them, and 6 of the 7 are under 32% chance to win them, including at UCF, 16.8, hosting Clemson, 19.6, at Cal, 20.3. That's the next 3 games. Thankfully, you got a couple weeks off bouncing around in there as well. But if matchup predictor has anything to say about it, Carolina's not in good shape. But here's the thing about computers. They don't account for the growth that inevitably will happen with a team of this nature that should be taking strides literally every week as they figure out more about who they are, as Bill Belichick figures out more about what it means to be a college football head coach. And so while I respect that and the numbers are good and helpful to process things, I'm not saying Carolina is going to go bonkers and go like 7-2 and flip all of these. But I don't think 4-8 is it. I truly honestly believe Carolina can get to bowl eligibility. Will they fly past that? I don't think so. But this team can get 6 wins. If they get those 2, you just got to find 2 more somewhere on this schedule. And that's doable. Whether that's Virginia at home, whatever. Up at Syracuse on Halloween night could get spooky, right? There's a lot of possibility there. But matchup predictor does not love these Tar Heels. Part of the reason is because Gio Lopez's quarterback grades so far are less than elite, shall we say. North Carolina needs to see a lot of growth there to go with the other growth that's going on. I'll explain what those numbers are and what we're looking at coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about game time, y'all, college football is back. I could not be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalry, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets to these things can feel like more of a battle than the actual game itself. Endless lines, hidden fees, tickets skyrocketing right when you get to check out. What is that, man? Come on. And that's why I use Game Time, because it's the app that gives the advantage back to you, the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. Legitimately, what you see is what you pay. It really is. It's faster, it's cheaper, and it's less stressful than any other way I've found to buy tickets. And I love that you can find views from your seats right there in the app. Carolina hosting Clemson coming up in a couple Saturdays. They've got zone deals in the upper sideline for $91. That's not that bad. If you want to spend a little more, you can go lower sideline zone deal for $103. I think that's totally worth checking out for a game of that magnitude. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. The Twitter account CFB Numbers had put out a helpful graph, XY axis type graph on Monday, and it was basically plotting out the performance from all Power 4 quarterbacks this weekend. On the y-axis going up and down, it had PFF's offensive grade, and then on the x-axis going from left to right, it had QBR rating. And this isn't just some like Joe Schmo thing. This is from a reputable guy, a senior media research associate at PFF runs this account. So like it's legitimate, right? We're not just like, oh, sure. What are all these numbers on this plot thing? No, it's legit. But when you look at it, bottom left is bad, upper right is good, basically is what we're talking about. Gio, way down in that bottom left corner. In fact, only 3 Power 4 quarterbacks this weekend had a worse PFF offensive grade. That's not good. And only 10 Power 4 quarterbacks had a worse QBR. Interestingly, though, that group of 10 that's worse includes Arch Manning. It includes Nico Iamaleava at UCLA. Boy, what a terrible decision. Bungled that one. Drew Aller at Penn State. And interestingly, also Ryan Brown at Purdue. Remember, he transferred to Carolina and ultimately went back. And so there's that. So, I mean, it could be worse, but it could be a lot better. And also, as you look at that scatter plot, if you go check it out, remember TCU's quarterback Hubert that we played week 1? That dude way up in the top right corner of this graph. He is very, very good. And I think that's part of what you got to take into consideration here as well, is that when you look back at that TCU game, they're a really strong football team. So that's part of that. For Gio, as we look at QBR, let me remind you, QBR is a scale of 0 to 100. 50 is average, 75 and higher is excellent. Gio's 3 games so far at North Carolina, his QBR is this. 1.5. Remember, this is 0 to 100, 1.5. 40 against Charlotte, and then 31-3 this week against Richmond. Literally has not been above 40. And that's tough because, yes, last year was not great at quarterback for North Carolina either. But if you go back 2 years to Drake Mays last year, literally never under 40. His lowest performance was, from a QBR standpoint at least, was better than so far what is Gio's best. Routinely, Drake was in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And look, maybe that's an unfair comparison because Drake May is arguably the best and greatest quarterback North Carolina has ever had. Gio is a guy, let's remember all the context of this. He came to Carolina after spring ball was over. He had all summer, but didn't have an opportunity, basically until fall camp, you don't get to do it hands-on and with that staff. And so not much time he's had to get this together to win that starting job. And so what the hope is that you start seeing massive strides as everything starts slowly working its way together and this whole unit starts figuring itself out. from a timing standpoint, from a trust standpoint, from a where do my receivers want the ball standpoint, from a how do I operate in this new offensive system standpoint if I'm Gio. Like all of that is certainly part of this. And I want to recognize and remember that there should not be the expectation that he comes in and has it all figured out. However, we are in the midst of the season. There is one more non-conference game, then a week off, and then ACC games the rest of the way with Clemson a week off and then 7 straight. That's what you got in front of you. And so I start thinking about it and looking at it in terms of, okay, so what do I need to see this weekend down in Orlando? I think what you have to see is Gio making quicker reads. You have to see him start to trust himself more. You have to see him not obsess. You have to see him diagnose. That's the word I'm looking for. Diagnose what he's seeing more quickly. And it's tough, man. I get it. It's tough because he's learning on the fly. But you've also got a guy backing him up who has won at the SEC level. Not at a high consistent level, but he's done it. And so what's going to be very interesting to me is to see what happens this weekend down in Orlando. If Gio stays kind of in this range that we've seen these first couple weeks, do they continue to roll with it? Because then you got a week off to lead up to Clemson, or because you've got the week off to lead up to Clemson, is it like, I don't know that we can go that direction anymore and we got to go with Max or whatever it is. I am, for my money's worth, Gio needs to take a massive step forward this week and this weekend. And if not, I think there's going to be some movement and some changes and some interesting decisions to be had ahead of Clemson. Even saying that, though, I recognize that you put yourself in an awkward position having a quarterback that's essentially played the entirety of the first 4 games outside of, once Gio got hurt in the TCU game, and then pulling the rug out from under him. What does that do to your locker room? What does that do to Gio? What does that do to Max? That's the question that the coaching staff's going to have to be able to answer. But there has to be more steps forward. The numbers that we're seeing cannot continue. Or North Carolina, those matchup predictor odds we just looked at, they're going to ring true if it continues like it is right now. There has to be improvement and marked improvement at quarterback. All right, guys, thanks for being with me here on this Tuesday. Tomorrow on Wednesday, our guy Josh Marlowe is going to be with me for the next in our roster preview series. We'll be looking at Jaden Young, the Virginia Tech transfer. Thursday, Coach Rob will be with me. Friday, we will get ready for that UCF game and everything else going on. Going to be a great time. I hope you all have had a good Tuesday, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. If you've not subscribed to Locked On Tar Heels on video and audio, do it right now so you don't miss a second of the show. If you're not a Locked On Tar Heels Discord member, man, it's a great community of Tar Heels. I try to keep that a safe place for people to be where they can come and know that they can be a true Tar Heel fan without having to face abuse and all that. Man, it's a fun place. Links in the show notes. If you want to go even deeper with our show, Locked On Tar Heels Insider Program, that link is in the show notes as well. I'd love to see you there. You get one-on-one interaction with me, free access to all of my data and stuff like that as well. All right, guys, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk again tomorrow, but until then, peace.